Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Let's Max Warframe. Today we're going to be taking a look at the top reward in the False Prophets event, the new version of the Quanta, the Quanta Vandal. The Quanta's a weapon that people have been asking me to review for a while, but I've not actually been able to because, well, quite frankly, I've never maxed one. The funny thing about this is that the Vandal takes the number of Quanta weapons up to 4 in the game now. You've got the Quanta, the Mutualist Quanta, the Parasis, which is still a Quanta, and also the Quanta Vandal. So what makes this Vandal version of the Quanta so special? Well, its base damage of 220 pure electric damage is exactly the same as the standard Quanta, which is one of the highest pure elemental damage weapons in the game. The advantage of this is it will combine fantastically well into any elemental combo. You know, radiation, magnetic, corrosive, really making those faction specific damages hit very, very hard. It's also not the critical chance of 10% or the critical damage multiplier of 200%, which are also exactly the same. Where the differences lie are the vastly improved 25% status chance of the Vandal compared to the 10% of the standard Quanta, and the 50% larger magazine size of 90 compared to the 60 the standard. Now this means that, as I'm going to talk about a little bit later, they both actually fulfill very different roles to each other. Now the one thing that I've not spoken about so far with the Quanta is the secondary fire mechanic, which is where using the aim key is going to send out explosive cubes that either explode on contact, can be shot out of the air, or can be left and they will explode after a short time, doing 200 damage if you leave the cube to detonate on its own, or 400 if you detonate it manually. Now what this means is that the Quanta has something to deal with every situation. You've got a laser to deal with single targets or small groups, and the explosive cube to deal with small to large groups, making it very well rounded. Now this is where what seems to be another advantage to the Vandal over the standard Quanta comes in. The actual travel time of the cubes does seem to be a bit faster on the Vandal, and this is from playtesting, so I might be wrong, but it definitely seems that way to me. Now obviously any balanced weapon needs its downsides, and the Quanta and the Vandal both suffer from the same limitations. Firstly, the beam of the Quanta only reaches 50 meters, so the range is limited from that extent, and the cubes only go 15 meters, so that range limited as well. The range of the beam can be mitigated to some extent with things like Ruinous Extension, however, as far as I could tell, that didn't really affect the cubes at all, so proper positioning to get the most out of it is needed. In addition to that, each cube that you fire takes 10 ammunition at any one time. So repeated and constant use of that secondary fire can drain your ammo so fast it's unreal. Now, this really isn't an issue unless you really want to spam the cubes. But if you use them smartly and not just spam the crap out of everything, ammo really should not be an issue, provided you just keep an eye on it. But the biggest problem with this, and honestly the reason I've not maxed a Quanta weapon before, and, well, it's just the lack of aiming down the sight. I've always been a fan of accuracy, making sure my shots are going to hit where I want them to hit, and you can't really do that with the Quanta weapons. You have to rely entirely on the crosshair as to where your shots are going to hit. It's long been a criticism I've had of weapons of these, and I really don't understand why we need to either have aiming or a secondary fire. It doesn't make any sense to me, and really something that does put me off using them. Okay, so let's move on to starting to mod the Quanta Vandal. Now it does come with a V polarity as standard, however we're going to add another 3 Vs in through Former. Now we've got a whole bunch of mods are remaining the same between all 3 of our builds. Serration for damage, split chamber for multi-shot, heavy caliber to further increase that damage, and the accuracy loss, I mean it doesn't mean anything because it's a beam weapon anyway. We've got shred, which is going to add punch through to the beam, plus it's also going to increase the fire rate, which means that the damage actually is applied more quickly. And the same pretty much goes with vile acceleration. That application of the damage is sped up, so it applies more damage more quickly. At the loss of a little bit of that damage, but the weapon does more than enough anyway for that actually not really to be an issue. Now, as I've said before, the Quanta Vandal really is a status based weapon, so we're really going to be modding for that status. So for Grineer, we're going to mod for the heaviest Grineer with radiation, and toxic to deal with the for the cloned flesh. So we're going to go with thermite rounds and high voltage, which is going to bring up the radiation, and malignant force for the toxin damage. And as you can see, that brings up almost a 90% status, which is absolutely fantastic. For our corpus, we're going rhyme rounds and high voltage to bring up magnetic, and once again malignant force for the toxin damage. And for the void, high voltage and malignant force. And we're also going with thermite rounds, which is going to bring up corrosive and heat. Now, the one problem with this build is going to come when you're trying to mod for viral. If you want to mod for viral, then you're going to end up with the radiation combo as well, which is, I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world to have. It's pretty good against the bombard units and some of the other sort of Grenier units. It's not ideal, and just heat would be better, but because of the way the elemental works with these weapons, it always takes the first combo, which is always going to combine, so the rhyme rounds and the malignant force, and the thermite rounds is unfortunately going to try and combine with the base electric on the weapon. So if you're going to go for the status build still, then you're going to run into this problem, which, I mean, it's not the end of the world, but it just does mean that the viral build is going to be slightly less effective. So, do I think it's worth the grind to get this weapon? And it really is a grind? Well, yes I do, provided that you can put up with the lack of aiming down the sight. Look, I mean, personally, I can't do without the aim. From years on years of playing FPS games, my playstyle revolves around aiming down the sight. And if you take that away, I end up spending so much time and so much ammunition sending these cubes at the enemy by accident. It's really not a weapon that I can see myself using very much personally. Now, saying that, that doesn't mean that I think the weapon is a bad weapon. I mean, far from it. The Quanta itself was already a top tier weapon, and although this Vandal fits a slightly different purpose, which is to spread status effects around huge groups of enemies, while doing pretty fantastic damage, it's still a serious top tier weapon. The damage that the weapon puts out both from the lasers and the cubes is fantastic, but being able to spread those status effects around to turn this from being a straight up damage dealer like the standard Quanta into more of a crowd control weapon, and it's an extremely capable one at that. Now, that's not to say that this is the only way to mod the Quanta Vandal. You can mod it the same as the original, which is full elemental to make the most of the cubes, but I think it's missing a trick doing that. And that honestly, if you want straight up elemental damage without the status, then just go for the original Quanta and let the Vandal play to its strengths. I might not like this weapon, or this type of weapon, and there are many in the game that are fantastic that I don't really like very much. However, I still know how good they are. Something like the Soma Prime is a fantastic example of something I don't really like, but I know how fantastic it is. And now the Quanta Vandal is one of those as well. It's a fantastic weapon. Great damage, great status, and effective crowd control. The Quanta Vandal had to be careful not to take an fantastic top tier weapon, like the Quanta, and then make it overpowered. The Vandal does that amazingly well, improving on an already fantastic recipe. And so, a quick couple of little things from me. Firstly, apologies for how long it took to get this video out. Myself and a clanmate spent 7 hours straight doing this as soon as the event came out, and just to get the Quanta Vandal. And in all honesty, I rather burnt myself out doing it. So Friday was firstly disrupted by sleep because it was extremely late by the time we finished, and then by a little bit of burnout, which, to be honest, I only had myself to blame. As such, I've not actually even managed to get an event video out either. Now, there are plenty of fantastic guides out there, so I mean, I wasn't really planning on making a separate video for it, unless you guys feel that you still need some help with it. So feel free to let me know in the comments below if you think that I should still get a video up for you guys on the event, just to give you a bit of a helping hand if you need it. Second thing from me, as you can see in the video, I am wearing the Nyx Nemesis armor. Now, this was actually extremely kindly donated to me by Tyresus, and is something that I'm not going to be taking off my Nyx for the foreseeable future, because damn, it looks amazing. It's in the market for a limited time now, for another 6 days, for 150 platinum. So remember, once it's gone, there's no telling when it's going to be back again. I'm always thankful to you guys who send me things like potatoes, former and such, or even skins for Warframes. It's absolutely amazing, and it really helps me keep going with my videos. And well, you can imagine the amount of former I go through, the amount of potatoes I go through. So every little bit that everyone sends me, it all goes back into making content for you guys. So I thank every single one of you that has actually sent me any gifts, and it's so helpful. Thank you very much. As always guys, as we hit 3,900 subscribers, I thank you for all the support that you've shown to my channel. Please remember to leave a like and subscribe, it helps me out a ton, and I shall see you in the next episode.